The sky still burned. Even after the ceasefire, the upper atmosphere of Tharine 4 shimmered with the faint orange ghosts of orbital bombardments. Captain Eli Ward could still smell the dust, an odd mix of scorched metal and alien pollen that drifted through the open gates of the ruined city. "Keep your visor on," Sergeant Ramos said through the comm. "Radiation pocket's still active." Eli didn't answer. His attention was on the sound, a thin, keening cry echoing between marble towers half melted by plasma fire. Someone was alive out there. He stepped over a broken statue of some alien goddess and followed the voice. His boots crunched across glass that had once been a street. Then he saw them. 3 figures huddled beneath the wreckage of a collapsed transport, tall, slender forms cloaked in white dust. When one raised her head, the sunlight caught the pattern of violet scales across her cheek glittering like stars. Her eyes, black with rings of blue fire, locked on him, wide with both terror and hope. Eli dropped his rifle. "You're safe now," he said, voice steady but soft. "Human rescue team." The eldest of the trio hesitated, then replied in accented Terran. "Safe? From who?" "From everyone," Eli said. "War's over." For a moment, none of them moved. Then the smallest girl, a younger one, maybe barely an adult, burst forward, clutching his arm with trembling hands. "Please," she whispered, "our sister is trapped." He followed her gesture. Under a twisted beam, another figure lay pinned. Her breath came shallow. Her silver blood pooled beside her. Without thinking, Eli dropped to his knees, braced his shoulder, and heaved. Metal screamed. Ramos's voice barked in his ear. "Captain, radiation surge. Not leaving her." Eli grunted. With a final shout, the beam rolled free. The wounded alien gasped and coughed, but she was breathing. The other 2 rushed to her side, murmuring words in their own language, something like prayer, something like love. Eli slumped back, chest heaving. For the first time since the armistice, he felt something thaw inside him. Humanity had fought these people for 6 brutal years. Now he was saving them. The eldest approached, studying him. "Why risk yourself for us?" she asked quietly. He gave a weary smile. "Because war's done. Someone's got to start acting like it." She tilted her head, eyes softening. "Then, you have already begun peace." Her name was Lyra, the silver-haired healer. The younger one, Neri, was all energy and questions, while the wounded girl, Say, barely spoke but watched everything with fierce, unreadable eyes. Together they were survivors of the Tishar noble line, once leaders of the enemy coalition. Over the following days, Eli's team evacuated civilians, repaired comms, and delivered aid. But the 3 Tishar sisters stayed near him, shadowing his movements, as if the human soldier who lifted a beam from their sister had become something sacred. On the 5th evening, while crimson suns dipped below the broken horizon, Lyra stood beside Eli on the ramparts of the old citadel. "My people think humans are monsters," she said. Eli's jaw tightened. "A lot of humans think the same about you." She turned to him then, her voice trembling. "Yet you saved us." He looked out at the burning plains. "Maybe monsters can choose what they do next." Behind them, Neri laughed softly as Say hummed an old Tishar melody, a song of renewal, of seeds growing in ash. For the first time since the war, Eli allowed himself to breathe without guilt. He didn't know yet that in saving those 3 sisters, he had changed the fate of 2 species. Nor that one day soon, those same alien girls would kneel before the Human Council and utter the words that would shake the stars. "We request marriage to him." 2 weeks after the rescue, Tharine 4 breathed again. The skies were clearing. Supply drops fell daily, and mixed patrols of humans and Tishar soldiers shared the streets, uneasy allies rebuilding the ruins they once shelled. The world still smelled of fire, but beneath it there was the faint scent of blooming soil. Captain Eli Ward had become something of a myth among both sides. The Tishar called him Rathanai, the one who lifts burdens. Every day, people he'd never met came to see him. Wounded civilians, old soldiers or children offering strange, shimmering flowers in thanks. Eli took none of it personally. He just wanted the rebuilding to keep going. Lyra walked beside him as they inspected a relief camp. Her silver hair was tied back, her white scales faintly luminous under the pale light. "Your people rebuild with such stubbornness," she said, smiling faintly. Eli chuckled. "We're good at putting broken things back together. Sometimes even ourselves." She studied him quietly. You sound like a man who doesn't believe it." He didn't answer. In truth, Eli still woke at night hearing screams that weren't his. His unit had been wiped out months before the ceasefire. Good people on both sides gone in seconds. Saving the sisters had given him something to hold on to, but the ghosts never really left. From a nearby tent, a familiar voice called out, "Captain, over here." It was Neri, the youngest sister, wearing a tattered human engineering jacket that hung loosely on her slim frame. She was kneeling beside a generator, tools scattered around her. Sparks burst as she grinned up at him. "I made your loud machine quieter. You fixed it again?" he asked, impressed. "No, improved it," she said proudly. "Humans use too much noise to feel safe." Ramos, passing by, muttered, "Guess that's why we shout orders all day." Neri laughed, a bright, ringing sound that somehow made the camp feel lighter. Then there was Say, the quiet one. She never spoke much, but every time Eli turned, he'd find her watching him. Not with suspicion. Something deeper, almost like she was studying the space between them, trying to understand it. She rarely smiled, but when she did, it was soft and dangerous, like the calm before a storm. That evening, a meeting was held between Human Command and the surviving Tishar nobles. Lyra insisted Eli attend as a mediator. Inside the cracked marble hall, generals sat across from alien elders, tension thick enough to choke on. "Your kind destroyed 12 of our colonies," growled General Porter, "and yours burned our homeworld," hissed a Tishar matron. Eli rose before the argument could spiral. "We can't rebuild peace if we keep counting ghosts," he said. "The war's over. Let's start talking like people who want to live." The room fell silent. Then Lyra stepped forward and placed a hand over her heart. "This human speaks truth. He risked his life for our bloodline. For that, we will listen." Her voice carried weight, more than Eli had expected. The council quieted, and for the first time, real negotiation began. Trade, joint reconstruction, mutual disarmament. It wasn't easy, but it was something. Afterward, outside under the stars, Lyra turned to him. "You spoke with strength. My people respect such courage." "I just told the truth," Eli said. She looked at him, eyes shimmering with something unspoken. "Sometimes truth is the hardest kind of courage." Say joined them silently, handing him a small vial of glowing blue liquid. "For your nightmares," she said softly. "It will not erase them, but it will remind you that you still dream." He took it gently, touched by the gesture. "Thank you." The three sisters stood together under the alien moonlight, their faces turned toward him like constellations rediscovered. For the first time, Eli felt not just duty, but belonging. He didn't know yet that whispers had already begun among both sides. Rumors of an impossible bond between human and Tishar. Nobility, a bond that would soon be tested by blood, politics, and something neither side could have predicted. The explosion tore through the dawn. Eli woke to the roar and the shockwave that sent dust cascading from the ceiling of his tent. His training took over before his mind caught up. Rifle, armor, move. Outside, chaos. Fire rose over the east quarter of the camp, where the Tishar medical shelters were. He sprinted, boots pounding the cracked earth. Around him, soldiers shouted orders, alarms blared, and alien medics cried out in panic. Eli leapt a burning wall panel and slammed into the wreckage. "Lyra!" he yelled. "Neri, say!" a voice answered through the smoke. "Eli, here." He found Lyra kneeling beside the rubble, her white uniform streaked with soot and blood. A shrapnel shard had sliced her arm, but she ignored it. Using her glowing palms to seal the wound of a dying child, Neri crawled out from the debris, coughing hard but alive. Say was nowhere in sight. "She went inside before the blast," Neri gasped. "There are more trapped." Without hesitation, Eli dove into the collapsing structure. The heat was unbearable, the air thick with burning plasma gel. He moved by instinct, shouting Say's name until his lungs burned. Then, he saw her. Say was pinned again, this time beneath a collapsed beam of alien alloy. She wasn't struggling. She was shielding a group of small Tishar children under her wings, her own body charred in places. "Captain Ward," she rasped, "you should not be here." "Not this argument again," he growled, dropping to one knee. He wedged his shoulder beneath the beam. "You ready?" She stared at him, eyes unfocused but fierce. "You humans, always lifting things you shouldn't." He grinned grimly. "Story of my life." With a roar he heaved. The beam shifted an inch. Then another. Pain split his back, but he didn't stop until Say pulled free, clutching the children. When they stumbled into the daylight, the camp erupted in cheers and disbelief. Even wounded Say had dragged 2 human medics out behind her. It was the first time since the war that human soldiers cheered for an alien. But the victory was short-lived. Later, investigators found fragments of human-made detonators. Someone from Eli's own side had sabotaged the camp. A faction within the Terran command opposed the alliance, believing the Tashar should remain enemies, not partners. Eli was summoned to the command center that night. "You're too close to them, Ward," General Porter said. "Rumors are spreading. They're calling you the aliens, Captain." "Let them call me whatever they want," Eli shot back. "They saved our people today." The general's expression hardened. "They're manipulating you. Don't forget who they were 6 months ago." Eli slammed his hands on the table. "I haven't forgotten. I just stopped blaming them for surviving." Silence. Then the general's voice dropped cold. "I'm reassigning you to orbit command. Effective immediately." Eli's stomach turned to stone. "You're pulling me out of the peace camp?" "You've done enough," Porter said. "Before you do something that can't be undone." That night, he packed his few belongings. The sisters came to his tent one by one. Neri threw her arms around him first, trembling. "You can't go. You said peace needs stubbornness." "I'll still fight for it," he said softly, brushing her hair back. "Just from somewhere higher." Lyra's eyes shimmered. "You saved my people twice. You think we will let them take you so easily?" Eli smiled weakly. "Don't start another war for me." Then Say stepped forward. Her burns were healing, faint silver lines across her dark scales. She looked at him for a long moment, then said quietly, "Wherever they send you, we will find you." Eli didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "That's not a good idea, Say." She tilted her head. "You keep lifting our burdens. One day, let us lift yours." As the shuttle lifted him toward the orbit station, the 3 sisters watched from the ground, hands clasped together, eyes fierce with determination, because peace, they had decided, wasn't something granted. It was something claimed, and they weren't about to lose the one human who had shown them its meaning. The orbit station Vigilant Dawn hung like a scar across the blue curve of HFY. From its cold halls, peace looked like a distant rumor. Captain Eli Ward stared out the viewport, hands clenched behind his back. Below him, the planet shimmered with faint lights of rebuilding cities, the world he'd helped save, and the one he was now ordered to stay away from. "Orders are orders," Commander Lyles had said. "No unauthorized contact with planetary personnel, especially not with the Tashar delegation." He'd saluted. He hadn't agreed. Days passed in routine silence, reports, maintenance, endless briefings that meant nothing. Every time he glanced at the comms terminal, his chest tightened. No messages. Officially, communication was restricted for security reasons. Unofficially, it was exile. But the universe doesn't keep promises forever. On the 7th night, the alarm klaxon shrieked through the corridors. "Unidentified vessel approaching," the AI droned. "Non-hostile transponder. Code translation to Tashar Royal Crest." Eli's heart stopped. He rushed to the observation deck. Through the viewport, a small silver craft approached. Wings curved like petals, engines glowing a soft blue. He didn't need to ask who it was. The docking clamps hissed. Marines gathered, weapons drawn. But before anyone could order a scan, the airlock opened and 3 figures stepped through: Lyra, Neri, and Say, the sisters. The soldiers froze, unsure whether to aim or salute. Lyra stood at the front, calm as moonlight. "We come under the banner of peace," she declared, "and to retrieve what was unjustly taken." Eli stepped forward, stunned. "You shouldn't be here. The Council knows," Say interrupted sharply. "They gave us no choice." Behind her, Neri was already typing on a human console with practiced ease. "I rerouted your defense grid," she said proudly. "You're welcome." Eli pinched the bridge of his nose. "You hacked a Terran station?" Lyra met his gaze, her expression steady. "They called you a traitor for saving us. We could not remain silent." Moments later, Commander Lyle stormed in, flanked by armed guards. "Ward, what is this?" Eli opened his mouth, but Lyra stepped forward first. "I am Lyra of House Tashar," she said. "This human is our recognized protector. His actions preserved lives on both sides. We will not allow his honor to be tarnished by fear." Lyles sneered. "Protector? You're aliens, not diplomats. You don't get to waltz into Terran airspace." "Then arrest me," Eli said suddenly. The room fell still. Eli's voice was quiet, but it carried. If saving lives makes me guilty, fine. But I won't apologize for peace. Something changed in Lyra's eyes then. A shimmer. A decision crystallizing. She stepped beside him, lifted her chin, and said in clear Terran speech, "Then let it be bound. If the Human Council will not trust his loyalty, let them bind it to ours. We offer him marriage." The words struck like a thunderclap. Lyles blinked. "Excuse me?" "It is Tishar custom," Lyra continued. "Marriage is the highest bond of unity. Between bloodlines, between species. A bridge stronger than treaties. One human, one house." Say and Neri stepped forward, joining her. Neri added shyly, "We three share the same vow. Together we ask the Council, let peace live through him." Eli stood frozen. "You can't—" Lyra turned to him, eyes wet but unwavering. "You once said monsters can choose what they do next. So we choose you." The silence that followed felt like the space between heartbeats. Then Commander Lyles exhaled sharply. "You three have no idea what kind of fire you just lit." He was right. Within hours, every news channel across both worlds blazed with the headline, "Tishar Royal House requests human marriage, peace or betrayal." That night, Eli sat alone in the observation deck. The galaxy sprawled before him like an unanswered question. He didn't know if this was diplomacy or madness, but when he saw the three sisters waiting silently outside the chamber doors, heads bowed yet unafraid, something inside him whispered, maybe peace was never built by the cautious. Maybe it always began with the brave. The council chamber on Vigilant Dawn was colder than space. Rows of Terran officers sat in a crescent arc, faces hard and unreadable. Banners of the Human Alliance hung overhead, their blues and silvers dull under the sterile light. At the center podium stood Captain Eli Ward, stripped of insignia, wrists cuffed in restraint bands glowing faintly blue. Across from him stood the Tishar sisters. Lyra, dignified in ceremonial white, her wound from the explosion still faintly visible. Neri, restless, eyes darting at every whisper from the crowd. Say motionless, her stare sharp enough to silence anyone who met it. The Human Council chair, Admiral Rethson, leaned forward. "Captain Ward," he began, voice like gravel, "you are charged with insubordination, unauthorized alliance contact, and jeopardizing interspecies security. Do you understand these charges?" Eli nodded once. "I do, sir. And do you deny them?" "No, sir. I acted knowingly." A murmur swept through the chamber. Rethson frowned. "Then explain yourself. Why defy direct command to harbor and coordinate with former enemies?" Eli raised his head. "Because they stopped being enemies the day they risked their lives for ours. Because they saved human lives when it mattered. Because peace isn't built by people who wait for permission." The Admiral's jaw tightened. "That sounds noble, Captain. But the Council must answer to billions who lost everything to the Tishar. How do you expect them to trust this arrangement?" Before Eli could reply, Lyra stepped forward, her voice ringing with quiet power. "Because we do not ask for trust," she said. "We offer it." She turned to Eli, then back to the Council. "Our people once saw humans as destroyers. Yet this man saved us without demand, without hatred. If peace must begin with one heart, then let ours be the first. Our vow of marriage is not possession. It is promise." A low murmur rippled through the hall again, mixed awe and disbelief. One human officer rose angrily. "Marriage? Between species? Between three of them and one of ours? This is madness." Neri's eyes flared with indignation. "Madness is killing because you cannot imagine peace." "Enough," barked Rethson. Say finally spoke then, her voice soft but carrying to every corner. "You fear what binds us because it cannot be controlled. But the bond already exists. He carries the weight of our lives. We carry his pain. The war is over, but the scars remain. This is how we heal." Silence. Even the Council's translators hesitated, their hands trembling slightly. Eli met their eyes one by one. "You can strip my rank, my name, my record, but don't bury the one chance we have at something better than survival." The Admiral sat back, studying him. "You realize what you're proposing goes beyond policy, beyond biology. You're talking about rewriting everything." Eli gave a small, tired smile. "Someone's got to start." For a long moment, Rethson said nothing. Then he gestured to the guards. "Remove his restraints." The guards hesitated, glancing at one another, then obeyed. The Admiral leaned forward again, voice lowering. You're not cleared yet, Captain, but there's something in this room I haven't seen since the war began. Eli frowned. What's that, sir? Hope. He stood. The council will deliberate. Until then, you remain under observation together. The hall erupted in shouts. Journalists recorded. Diplomats whispered. And somewhere deep in the noise, the first lines of history began to shift. Later, in the quiet of the temporary quarters, the four of them sat together, exhausted, silent. Outside, 1,000 lights of ships drifted like fireflies in orbit. Neri leaned against Eli's arm. Did we win? She whispered. Eli exhaled slowly. No, but they didn't shut the door. Lyra smiled faintly. Then the universe has begun to listen. Say looked out the window. And somewhere someone is afraid of what comes next. Eli followed her gaze to the stars. Good, he said softly. Means we're doing something right. 3 days after the hearing, the Vigilant Dawn became a fortress of rumor. No one knew if the council would approve the Unity marriage. Some called it a scandal. Others whispered it was the only thing that could end 100 years of hatred. Eli didn't care about the politics anymore. He only cared that the sisters were safe, but peace rarely lasts long in orbit. It began with a flicker, a brief systems glitch that darkened the observation bay. Then came the power drop. Then the alarms, warning, the AI blared. Unauthorized reactor access detected. Engineering deck 3. Eli was already moving. Lyra and Say followed, their light armor glinting faintly under emergency strobes. Neri hacked a panel as they ran, her voice tight. Someone's overriding containment locks. It's deliberate. Sabotage, Say said flatly. Again. The corridor shook as they reached the engineering deck. Smoke poured from a shattered conduit. Inside, they found 2 human technicians dead, and 1 man crouched by the reactor core setting charges. When he turned, Eli's heart dropped. Sergeant Ramos, the man he trusted through the entire war. The one who'd saved his life twice. Ramos, Eli breathed. What the hell are you doing? Ramos's face twisted with pain. I'm finishing what should have been finished, Eli. You think peace with them means safety? It means extinction. He raised a pistol. Lyra gasped, stepping in front of Eli, but Say moved faster. Her wings snapped open, deflecting the first shot. Sparks exploded from the metal wall. Eli dove forward, tackling Ramos. They crashed against the floor, fists and fury colliding in a blur of betrayal. You don't understand. Ramos shouted. They killed my family. And I lost mine. Eli roared back, pinning him. But I still chose mercy. For a moment, Ramos's face broke, torn between hate and grief. Then his thumb flicked the detonator. Beep, 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 Neri screamed. Charges armed! Lyra sprinted toward the device, glowing hands shaking as she tried to disarm it. Her healing energy wasn't made for machines, but she refused to stop. Go, she shouted. Take them out. Eli dragged Ramos away, slamming him against the console. Where's the cancel code? Ramos coughed blood. There isn't one. The timer dropped to 10 seconds. Say didn't hesitate. She wrapped her arms around the core, her scales flaring bright silver. Get out, she said simply. Eli froze. Say, no. I can absorb the blast, she said. Not survive it, but delay it. Enough for you to eject the chamber. Lyra turned, eyes wide with terror. Sister, no. Say smiled faintly. You once said peace must begin with one heart. Let mine be first. The countdown hit 5. Eli's hands trembled. Say, don't do this. Then lift my burden, she whispered. Finish what I start. And before he could reach her, she slammed her palm against the emergency vent control. The reactor chamber sealed. The explosion came a heartbeat later, muted, bright, final. The shockwave rattled the station. The core ejected into the void like a burning star, drifting silently until it dimmed. When the alarms faded, Eli fell to his knees. The glass viewport showed only darkness. Lyra collapsed beside him, sobbing into his chest. Neri clung to his sleeve, whispering Say's name over and over. Ramos lay unconscious, bound and silent. The room smelled of smoke and loss. Minutes later, the station AI spoke quietly. Reactor contained. Catastrophic detonation prevented. Fatality count 1. Eli didn't move. He could only stare into the cold stars. Lyra's trembling voice broke the silence. She saved both worlds. Eli nodded, tears burning down his face. Yeah, he whispered. And now the council will have to decide what that's worth. That night, the universe mourned one Tashar warrior who gave her life for peace. But beneath the grief, something else stirred. Human and alien soldiers standing side by side in silence. For the first time, no one spoke of race or flag, only sacrifice. And on the council's floor the next morning, the vote was no longer about politics. It was about honoring what she'd died for. They called it the Day of Silence. No transmissions. No speeches, no orders. Across Thareen Fu and every Terran outpost, humans and Tishar alike simply stopped, to honor the warrior who gave her life so the rest could live. Her name, once whispered in fear by both species, now echoed through comms and screens. Say Tishar, shield of peace. Eli stood before the council again. His uniform was gone, only a plain black jacket and the thin silver band Lyra had given him wrapped around his wrist. Say's memory engraved within. Beside him stood Lyra and Neri, both veiled in mourning cloths, their faces calm but eyes burning with purpose. The chamber was different now. No hostility, no shouting, only the heavy quiet of decision. Admiral Rethson rose from his seat. Captain Ward, he began softly, we've reviewed the reports. The reactor incident, your conduct, and the actions of the Tashar sisters. He paused, looking at the two aliens who refused to bow. 300 human lives were saved that day, he said. And by all accounts, without your cooperation, this station would be debris. Eli swallowed hard. Say deserves the honor, sir. Not me. The Admiral's eyes softened. You're right. But she gave us something we can't repay. She gave us proof. He stepped forward, voice rising so the whole chamber could hear. Proof that peace between our species is not only possible, it already exists. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The Council, he continued, has voted unanimously. Effective today, the Human Alliance and the Tishar Empire enter a binding treaty of coexistence and open unity. He turned to Lyra and Neri. And regarding your proposal? Lyra's hands trembled slightly. Yes, Admiral? The old soldier's mouth curved into the faintest smile. We approve the ceremonial union, not as politics, but as remembrance. The hall erupted in murmurs, but none dared protest. Even those who had doubted now lowered their heads, because no one could argue against the blood that had sealed that vow. The ceremony took place beneath the open sky of Thareen Fur, in the ruins of the old citadel where they'd first met. No banners, no crowns, only humans and Tashar standing side by side, their weapons buried in the earth, their scars bare in the sunlight. Eli stood at the center, the wind tugging at his jacket. Lyra approached first, her silver scales catching the dawn. She placed her hand against his chest. You gave us mercy when the universe forgot how, she whispered. I vow to guard that mercy with my life. Then Neri stepped forward, her small hands trembling but her voice clear. You showed me laughter when everything was ashes. I vow to build joy from what's left. Eli's throat tightened. He clasped both their hands, his voice breaking. You taught me how to believe again. I vow to carry all of you and her in everything I do. The wind stirred, carrying a faint shimmer of light that danced across the stones, as though Say herself still lingered there. Watching, approving, then came the joining. Two species, one vow, no empire, no enemy. Just people choosing each other against the gravity of history. The moment the vows were sealed, the gathered crowd, human and alien, lifted their hands in unison. A sound began to rise. Not cheering, not chanting, something deeper. The first song of peace. Eli looked up at the twin suns breaking the horizon. You see that, Say? He whispered. We kept it going. Lyra leaned against him, tears glittering like glass. She is not gone, Eli. She became the space between us. That's why we found each other. Neri smiled softly through her tears. Then peace isn't an end. It's her heartbeat, Eli nodded. And now it's ours. In the years that followed, children of both worlds would learn their story in schools. They would see 3 alien sisters and 1 human captain, not as symbols but as a truth. That sometimes the bravest act isn't fighting a war. It's reaching out a hand when everyone else still clings to their weapon. And across the stars, the oath they made that day would be remembered in both languages. 3 hearts. 1 vow, peace, by love.